On the 10th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. Behavior management tips. Hi, so this video today isn't anything technical. It isn't anything that's going to necessarily be specific to different areas of computer science, but this might help you if you are just getting new into teaching, and some tips to kind of help you with your classroom management more than anything. So I've been teaching roughly 9 to 10 years now. I'm 30, and I've taught in a number of different schools, and I've had a number of different experiences, from different behaviour policies to schools that don't even have a behaviour management policy in. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about today are basically a kind of quick start guide to what to do when you're in the classroom. And if some of my students are watching this, you'll understand some of the thought into why I teach the way that I do, and I don't mind that. But this should help any new teachers to kind of give them a balance and some sort of guide to dealing with behaviour in the classroom. Now, my first number one tip I'm going to give you is you don't need to be a good teacher. You don't need to shout at kids to be a good teacher. My ethos is that shouting or getting angry should always be a last resort. It's better for you if you try and actually find out the root of the problem rather than getting in a shouting match with a kid. In my first year of teaching, I went in as an instructor. I had zero behavior management training. I had zero kind of guidance at just as soon as I went into the classroom, on how to actually just manage the behaviour. And I thought the first thing you do, if you want students to do everything that you want them to do, you just shout and shout and shout and shout until they do what they should be doing. Wrong! You get zero respect from students if you do that. When you first start teaching, yes, you need to be assertive, yes, you need to stamp your ground, but you don't go in and you don't shout, because the way you see it, as soon as you shout, if that's where you're at with your shouting, how much higher can you go? And then when the student has done something really wrong, how do they actually know that it's really bad? They don't, because you're always up there. Whereas if you are down here, then you've got somewhere to go when they have done something that's maybe put them in danger and you need to get their attention quickly. So don't be a shouter, be firm but fair. So quick tips on how to deal with that. When you go into the classroom, the last thing you want to do is to go in there and obviously look like you can be walked over. I always say to any new teachers that are going into teaching, wait. Just wait. The first thing, if you try and talk over students, you've lost them right away, and they will continue to do it. I've witnessed this in teachers who have been teaching for 20, 30 years, and it's something that's easily forgotten. But as soon as you step into that classroom, you do not start your lesson until you have their attention. Do not let students talk over you. And I don't mean by shouting at them. You can do that by getting some quick wins. Just stop and wait for their attention. And if they continue it, then you can then resort to writing names on board, writing down minutes on the board. Simple, quiet things that are going to get their attention, and they'll wonder why has he just put 1 minute on the board, or why has he just put 2 minutes on the board? Why has he just written my name on the board? And they soon start to get it without you necessarily having to get in a shouting match with those kids. And also, one way of dealing with that, so once you're trying to start a lesson, don't lead your lessons from the front of the class all the time. That is a rookie mistake, and if you can help it, try and work your way around the room. I'm going to show you a little tip with PowerPoint. If you're in an IT suite, this will help, that you can actually send your PowerPoint out to every screen in the classroom. I don't like to stand at the front, because as soon as you stand at the front, that kid who is going to play around goes straight to the back of the class, unless you've obviously got your seating plans in place. But the tip here is always work the room. simple behavior management technique that is going to help you improve behavior with your students is actually to use the room. If you deliver everything from the front, the kids with the bad behavior are naturally going to go to the back of the room, and it's going to be difficult for you to deal with that. So what I say is, if you, I'll put the tip at the end of this video that shows you how you can distribute your PowerPoint to all your students, but move and work the room. Okay? Now, another tip on that note is, if you are trying to get your students to be engaged in your lesson, don't necessarily think that you've got to play games all the time. You do need quick, fast-paced, engaging lessons, but the schools where I've been in and Ofsted have said that that was a great lesson, has been where lessons keep the students engaged because they've not had an opportunity to misbehave because they've got so many tasks that are given to them. Break your lessons up into chapters, so you can have 10 minutes on this activity, 10 minutes on that activity. Obviously, with your better behaved classes, you can give them a little bit longer on that leash to kind of do certain activities. But if you've got a class where their attention span is it's lost quite easily, you want to break it down into smaller chunks that they can understand and do activities, changes in the type of activity, so you're keeping them on their feet. That tends to be more often or not where you lose students. If you have too long spent on one task, that can actually make a huge difference. Another thing, we've all had technology fail on us. Who hasn't? It might have been the projector not working, it might have been something freezing. So always have in the back of your mind something that you can do on paper, something that doesn't rely on technology, that you can pull out of your bag, whether it be a sketching task, whether it be, it's got to be something that you can get them doing right away that isn't reliant on technology. So always just have that as a kind of backup. One thing, a teaching tip that I'm going to give you on dealing with students that tend to misbehave a lot in the groups while you're actually talking. Remember what I said before about working the room? Well, actually go and stand next to that child that is misbehaving. Just standing next to that kid can be enough to deter them a lot of the time, because they know that you've clocked them. You don't need to raise your voice and shame them in front of the whole class. You don't need to do anything like that. You just go and stand next to them, and straight away they know that you've clocked them. Dealing with people who are late into your lesson. Don't name and shame them and make a big deal out of it in front of the whole class. Bring them in, sit them down, say, why are you late? They can explain it, or you just get them, you just say, okay, take your seat and I'll talk to you in a minute. That way it's not cutting into your lesson, and it's just a quick win. You can go up to that person and you can be like, okay, why are you late? Explain that to me. And then if they say that they've been to another teacher, you just email that teacher. So like I said, today's video is not anything amazing, anything specific about tools that you can use, but it's just tips to make sure that you don't fall into the trap of letting students talk over you. Obviously, if there are ever any incidents that, if you're in a school that has a behavior management policy, you always follow up. So if you have a warning system, you follow up. One thing that I will say, when you are just getting into teacher training, do not give up on the battle. Sounds weird, but if you've got a student that is going through some tough times, and they are going to, sometimes as a way of acting out, they may push boundaries and push and push and push to the point where they want to push your buttons. Well, do not, if your school has sanctions that are in place, do not back down from that sanction. Because as soon as you threaten a kid with a sanction, or you say to that student, well, you're going to miss a break, or you're going to miss something, or you're going to have to sit with me for your lunch. As soon as you say that, you have to carry it out. Because the moment you back out on that, that student has won that little war. Alright, if you like, because what's going to happen there is that student's going to think, well, I can play this person up again, because they're not going to follow up with anything, and I'm going to get away with it. If you threaten to call a parent, you do it. If you threaten to speak to their head of year, you do it. You do not back down from that. And if you have a student waiting outside of your room until you get an apology for bad behavior. You wait until they apologize. Don't back down, because what you can do is you can get them caught up with the work at a later period, as long as you don't let it distract from the learning of the other pupil. So they're just some tips, something that might be helpful for you, particularly if you are getting into teaching for the first time. So my tip for the 10th day of Christmas is some tips for new teachers on behavior management. Like I said, keep calm. You don't need to raise your voice. Just actually find out what's going on with that child. Speak to them. Have you ever thought about actually, instead of talking down on the student, lowering your knees and actually talking to them face to face to find out why their behavior is the way it is, and actually just love your students? And I don't mean that in a weird way either. I mean just actually get to know them and actually find out what makes them tick, and you'll find that you will have less to worry about with their behavior management. And I'm not saying be their best friend, okay? I'm saying find out what they like, what they don't like. Use them as a student voice. What didn't they like about your lesson? It's okay. Not all of our lessons are perfect, and if we can listen to our students and improve them and make them more engaged in it, then they're going to make a lot more progress quicker. So thank you for watching today's video. I hope that that's been useful for you, and happy 10th day of Christmas. See you later. So at the end of my video, I said to you that I was going to show you how you can distribute your PowerPoint to every student's screen. That way, as a behavior management tool, you can check what is on every student's screen around the class. Now, what I'm going to do is, what you'll see here is I will go to slideshow and present online. Now, you can tick this box that says enable remote viewers. And what that allows people to do is they can actually download the presentation and look back at it later on. So I'm going to press connect, and what it will start doing is it will start uploading the presentation just like that. Now all you do is copy and paste that. So I'm going to copy that link, and you can send it in an email to your students, or press send email. Now if I open up my browser and paste that link, it creates the presentation. It will say that it's there to start running. If I press start presentation, I'm just going to open up. The presentation will be loading, and you can follow the presenter, and as I go through my presentation, it moves on in the browser. And you can just have that with every student in your class, and that is within PowerPoint. So I use that as a behavior management tool because I know if there's anything else on their screens when I'm walking around the classroom that they're on something they shouldn't be. It also means that I can just read off their slides and use the slides as a kind of pointer to help me remember what I was going to talk about next, and it leaves me free to wander the IT suite. I hope that that's been useful.